So thank you so much. So while discussing the complications, we start with our own problems, our own complications as surgeons. So my topic is prevalence and risk factors of neck pain in spine surgeons. Are we our own patients? So just to start with the show of hands that in the hall who has ever had neck pain while doing surgeries, after doing surgeries, I think this sums it up. So we all know that minimal invasive spine surgery that we are discussing for the last couple of days comes two things. The first is illumination and the next is magnification. And there are various ways of doing it. Here you see me operating with loops, our very favorite Dr. Raj operating under microscope, and Dr. Keyur using endoscopes. So neck pain is a professional hazard for us as surgeons. Long working hours, awkward neck positions, and working techniques are few of the risk factors. And here we conducted a one-of-a-kind survey where we checked the prevalence and risk factors of neck pain among spine surgeons. So we sent a survey questionnaires to 300 spine surgeons across our country through text messages, emails. The question contained various topics pertaining to the demographic data, neck pain, the frequency and type, any medications or intervention that was done, their working hours, the use of loops, microscope or naked eyes, their lifestyle, that is, did they ever exercise or not, any need of investigations and any treatment done in form of medications, surgeries, etc. So, and these were our results. So 180 of them responded, so the response rate was good, around 60%. 4 of the spine surgeons had already been operated for them. 134 spine surgeons of the 180 had neck pain, signifying that the prevalence was as high as 74%. So of the data, most common age group that responded was around the 30s. Lifestyle was varied with a few exercising daily to a few never exercised. Most surgeons operated with naked eyes. There was no significant preference of height in the table. Most of them work for 20 to 30 hours in their OPDs for a week. Most of them scrub for 10 to 20 hours a week. And 45 surgeons had already been gone through some investigation in form of MRI, X-rays or a CT scan, suggesting that the complaints was actually significant. As we had Dr. Pamech, he did his MRI and showed. So when we look at the world statistics, the incidence of neck pain in general population is around 23%. In other subspecialties of surgeons, it ranges from 47 to 60%. And in our study, the spine surgeon had as high as 74%. Now let's have a look at the risk factors and who is the culprit. So from our study, there were 2 male culprits, the first being their lifestyle. So those exercising less than 3 times a week had significant more amount of neck pain than the other counterparts. And the other was use of loops over microscopes. So there's nobody to blame for that. So there has been number of studies that have been done through the years which signify that a decrease in the number of exercising hours or a sedentary lifestyle has neck pain ranging from adolescent to active young individuals. And also studies which signify that loops are better as compared to microscope when considering the ergonomics. Hence, to conclude, spine surgeons have a very high prevalence of risk factor than the general population and other surgeons. It is very important that we have a look into the surgical ergonomics. So intermittent breaks, micro breaks, as we suggest our patients during our OPD hours or during our surgeries. The use of microscopes over loops whenever possible. And the third most important thing is to continue our physical activity at least 3 times a week. Hence, in order to do that, we must do this. That's my mentor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hriday. Since we are before time, so we can take 2 or 3 questions. So I want to be the first to ask.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So do you think that in your study, you should include screen time of the mobile? I mean, because other than the work part, there's a lot of time we are off work.
So I think that as you previously mentioned about the complications that they're underreported, this thing I feel it would be the most underreported thing if it is in the questionnaire. But yes, of course, including it would actually be helpful. If we extend the questionnaire, we would include that. And
you included your reason for that?
I think no one will disagree to the screen time thing. I mean, everyone's sitting here. Yeah, Ram sir, please.
Yes, sir.
Small question. Among the people using their loops,
what I noticed even in your picture is that you guys are getting your loop mounted so that you can have a coaxial vision looking down. I've been using loops since 1996. I have a 2.5 and a 3.5 and I use it regularly. My loops are such that I'm actually not tilting my neck. I'm just looking down. And I have kept a very large focal distance. So I don't strain my back here or my neck here and I operate like this. It's a matter of training yourself. If you're going to be looking like this and operating, which is what you're sort of doing with the loop, then it's something that needs to be looked at ergonomically. So I have found loops to be extremely good and less painful than other options, provided you do is keep yourself the way you ought to be and keep a long focal distance.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The exercises have to be tailor-made to your requirements professionally. Just an extension. You could cycle 150 kilometers a week, but that necessarily doesn't make your neck strong. So if you're a good javelin thrower, you need good shoulders to throw. For a neck guy, you have to have neck. And I will tell you, all of you all, I've done this. I think Rams, just stand next to the wall. Take all your points and try to tuck in and stand with your head touching the back of the wall. I can bet none of you all can do it more than a minute. And I thought it was impossible. I'll do it for sure. After a while, my neck just goes. Just simple exercises where you get the neck tucked in back will help me. So
Yeah. Thank you, Vijay.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much.
we can take more questions at the end of the session.
Can I have one small comment?
Yes, please.
I'm neurosurgeon, as I told you already. I'm doing vascular surgery and I'm using mouse stick. You know what is mouse stick? To change microscope position and also foot pedal. And I adapt for spine surgery mouse stick. In terms of when I'm doing operation, you can change your microscope position with your mouse stick. Maybe it's good for our neck. Maybe it's just.
Maybe we can add that to the study.
Thank
so
you so
thank
much.
you, thank you,
And I
Vijay.
hope everybody starts
Yeah.
exercising if they are not.
So nice opening batsman. So can I have the next speaker, Dr. Raga? He will be speaking on managing lumbar adjacent segment disease using minimally invasive techniques. No? Sorry. May- Okay, the right angled ones. Yeah. So is Dr. Raga not here, right? Okay, may I invite the next speaker, Dr. Matre. He will be speaking on perioperative complications in MIS TLIF for degenerative listhesis, a comparative analysis of regional versus general anesthesia in large patient cohort.
Thank you so much, sir. Good morning, respected faculty and my fellow colleagues. So as we know, degen listhesis involves forward slippage of one vertebra over the other. It causes chronic pain and mobility issues, most commonly managed by MI TLIF to restore the spinal stability. And we use the two primary techniques of anesthesia, which are regional anesthesia and general anesthesia. Coming to the background of anesthesia types, the general anesthesia involves a complete unconsciousness of the patient. Immobility is achieved via intravenous and inhalational agents, but is also associated with a lot of slower recovery, higher risk post-op nausea, and may also pose an additional challenge for people who have comorbidities. Whereas regional anesthesia is spinal anesthesia, gives a segmental nerve block while the patient is unconscious and lightly sedated, and offers hemodynamic stability for reduced bleeding. Coming to my study objective, we involved around 500 patients, 250 regional anesthesia and 250 general anesthesia, between 2019 and 2024. The data was assessed in terms of intraoperative complications, post-op recovery, adverse events, and long-term outcomes. So my inclusion criteria involved 45 to 80 years of patients who had degen listhesis and who underwent MIS TLIF. Exclusion had patients who had incomplete medical records, previous spinal surgeries, and anesthesia contraindications. So coming to the protocols, anesthesia in the regional involved spinal blocks with titrated sedation. General anesthesia used ET, endotracheal intubation, and inhalational maintenance. And we know that the TLIF procedure which we conducted was for degen listhesis patient. Here we can see a 60-year-old male who had L4-5 anterior listhesis with severe canal stenosis. We used the tubular technique to dock the tube. When the patient had right side symptoms, we docked on the right side. This is an image of the tubular decompression we did, the cage placement, and followed by pedicle screw fixations percutaneous. This was the final result. The data which we collected had intra-op blood loss, duration, post-operative pain was measured, the time to ambulation, hospital stay, and infection rates with nerve injuries and satisfaction. My analysis was calculated with the help of t-tests and chi-square tests. So coming to the demographics, the mean age was selected around 62, 60% were female and 40% were male. Average BMI was identical. Comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes was equally distributed, and the balance was ensured so that there was no confounding factors present. So coming to my results, the regional anesthesia group experienced a very low blood loss compared to the general anesthesia group because of better hemodynamic control. The duration of surgery, general anesthesia had an upper hand here because a quicker anesthetic induction was present. The hospital stay for the regional anesthesia patients was lesser, and they had an early ambulation, whereas the post-operative pain scores were lower in regional anesthesia, and satisfaction was also better here. Rates of infection and nerve root injury were very low, and they were very similar, so statistically not that significant. Functional improvement was measured in terms of Oswestry Disability Index and was more pronounced with the improvement in regional anesthesia at 6 months post-surgery. So basically, advantages of regional anesthesia were faster recovery, superior pain control, reduced blood loss, and higher satisfactions. The limitations whereas included technical expertise and careful patient selection. The role of GA, though, remains valuable for complex and prolonged surgeries, which are suitable for patients and people who have severe anxiety issues. So to conclude, the regional anesthesia offers a clear perioperative advantage, lower blood loss, faster recovery, less pain, and higher patient satisfaction. But RA and GA should be, the choice should be tailored to patient and surgical factors. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent.